Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of The Chicken Box. I'm your host, Jay. Solo this week, but we have a great interview this time with Desiree Marcano. She is a 15-year cancer survivor, breast cancer very specifically, for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. She is born and raised in Baltimore City. She has done work with both Touch for Life and Tigerlily, which are cancer support groups. She also co-founded the Journey Continues African American Breast Cancer Support Group, Inc. She is here to tell her story about not only being a cancer survivor, but what it's like going through that process and how she's come out on the other end. So without further ado, Desiree Marcano. Desiree Marcano, welcome to the show. How are you?
I am doing just dandy. Thank you.
Excellent. So as I read in the intro here, you are a 15-year cancer survivor. This is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So thank you for joining us. So 15-year survivor. Can you talk about your sort of initial diagnosis and like what was going through your mind and like how did you deal mentally to prepare for this sort of
Ye-
pretty rough journey that was ahead of you?
Yes. Rough and scary journey.
Sure.
So I first of all, the standard for breast getting mammograms or so forth at the time that I was diagnosed, it was 40. I wasn't 40 just yet. I was 37, and my woman doctor, my gynecologist, just said, "Listen, I need you to just give me a baseline. I need you to do a mammogram and give me a baseline." And the whole time, like if you could read what was in my mind, I was like, "I'm not 40 yet. Like that's stupid. Why would I do that? Like that's dumb. I'm not old."
Right. Of
That's what
course.
I said then. That's what I said then. Um, so for maybe about 2 years, I would go in and he'd say, "Did you get that mammogram yet?" No, no, I didn't get it. So finally, I do go, and mind you, I don't have a history of breast cancer. Nobody in my family. And keeping in mind, like I am Baltimore born and bred, but that's via immigrant parents from Trinidad.
Sure.
So their history, they never knew anything about that. So, finally I say, okay, I'm tired of coming here and then you tell me about this. So, and when I go, they're like, wait a minute, we see something.
Hmm.
And mind you, I wasn't feeling anything. That's something that, I definitely, you'll hear me stress that self-exam, self-exam, self-exam. But I wasn't one of those people that's like, I had a tumor and I felt the tumor and that's, and that certainly has its value, but that's not what happened for me. But they said they see something. And I'm like, well, exactly what do you see? So what ended up happening was something in the breast cancer world. It's called calcifications. And so they saw these calcifications, which again brings the ignorance out of me because I'm like, I don't have any children. Why would I have calcifications on milk?
Hmm.
And so, they're like, just do it. So they look at it and they say, okay, well, that is a symptom, but it's not anything for me to get worried about, right? Understand? So
Right.
I'm like, okay. So for the next 3 years, I had to do mammograms twice a year because they said, well, what can happen is you have these calcifications that are contained within your mammary glands, and but at any moment, as I love my doctor at that time, at any moment, the cells that we see could get mad and they want to explode and get out. So I go, they haven't exploded. I go, they haven't exploded, and then I go, and they have exploded, and now they're starting to travel through my body. Again, I still don't feel anything. I don't feel anything. But I finally go, and they say, let's do a biopsy. Did the biopsy of these, as I say, these angry cells in my body, and it comes back on my birthday of all days, my
Right.
birthday
Jeez.
of that year. That was my birthday gift from life.
Right.
And I get that phone call on my birthday. Doctors don't call you like at night. and the doctor calls me and they tell me, we did the biopsy and you indeed have breast cancer. So that is how I find out, and I start on this very amazing journey um, in my life at that point.
So how long from the time that they told, like, I guess your first, um, you know, your first test where they were like, all right, we need you to come and do um, these mammograms or what have you. How long from that first test to when you were officially diagnosed? How much time was that?
It was 3 years.
3 years. So there's sort of this looming possibility for 3 years.
Yes.
Wow. It's interesting. I've never quite heard that perspective in
Really?
dealing with cancer of like, it could be that it could be, you know what I mean? Like that's sort of a terrifying thing too, right?
Yeah.
Because normally people go, I don't feel well or what have you, or they go in for a routine exam. And then it's like, you get this sort of devastating news and then your world is thrown upside down and you're like, okay, what do I have to do? How do I figure it out? But this idea of this kind of like thing on your shoulder, like maybe,
Correct.
that's got to be a level of stress
Yeah.
that is deeply unhealthy. Sure.
Very stressful,
Yeah.
because at the same time, I'm learning about this world of breast cancer. Asking my parents, listen, do we have anybody in our family
Sure.
here or in Trinidad? No, no, nobody. So I'm like, no, it can't ever come back the way you think it is, because then I think, the doctors are being fear mongers. They're just saying this. That's not what it's going to be. And I should have known better. So it was looming over my head. And then when it happens and I find out on my birthday, my world was turned all the way, all the way around. So
Hmm. And how long did you fight this successfully, obviously,
for
um, before you get your sort of you're in complete remission? Is that 10 years or 5 years? I know that I've seen different
right. So
different.
now it's like 10 years, 10 to 15. But I will tell you that my oncologist has a different perspective,
Mhm.
meaning the angry, remember I talked about the angry breast cancer, cell that's in
Sure.
my body trying to find some place to party, as my oncologist explained to me. They want to party. Um, so it's about 3 years where they're just stagnant, they're just sitting there, and then it happens. But the time, so it's a coincidence that you talk about time. So the time is, it's my birthday. All right, you have breast cancer. I tell my parents who are over in Trinidad, um, which didn't end well for my parents. I mean, meaning that my mother's like, I'm coming right now. Like
Yeah,
right
I get that.
now. I'm getting on the plane right now for my child. So I appreciate her for that and being my caregiver. But it's like the whole situation takes 3 years. But when I find out, of course, I'm working at the time. I'm working now, but at the time, it was a daily thing. I work down in the courthouse, and it's a daily type of thing. So I say to myself, you know what? It took 3 years. I can put this off, which is I advise no one to say I'm going to put this off.
Wait, the treatment you're saying you put off for 3 years?
Right, the surgery,
Wow.
the because I end up having to have surgery because
Hmm.
I am a mastectomy survivor.
Sure.
So the only thing that kind of changes my mind at that time, my mother's like, all right, I've already booked my ticket. I'm coming to see you. Okay, mom. Plus, if you're a caregiver, you need that other person there with fresh, clear ears to hear what the doctor is telling you. Because I
Absolutely.
promise you, the doctor sounds like we're doing an episode from Charlie Brown. Wah, 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 wah.
Right, right. I mean, it's just, I mean, emotionally, technically, like it's got to be so much. Like, here, let me give you all this technical readout. Like, bro, I don't know what you're talking about,
I
right?
don't know
So,
what you're talking about.
right, and
And
then
that's
you're in this emotional state that is
correct. And
making you.
that's just
Yeah.
not my life. Like being in a
Mm,
hospital for anything. I,
mm,
I was never a child that got a broken leg or a knee or anything. You
right.
know, nothing was going on. But if it wasn't for, at the time, I was dating a gentleman. And so as I'm sitting here, like, work kind of dies down around Christmas. I'm going to have my surgery around Christmas. And so remember at that time, well, you don't know, but I'm sharing with you at that time, there's only two little tumors, where everything is going on. So my gentleman at the time, he says to me, don't wait until December. You're dealing with cancer. Plus, I'd rather have you here than your situation, your breast, as he would honestly say.
No,
Um,
it's a fair point. It's a fair
right.
point.
So he's like, don't wait till December. So I'm like, that's gonna mess up work. Oh my goodness, I'm a working woman. I am that woman that works every day, no matter what.
Right.
So finally, I say, all right, I'll push it up. I'm not gonna do December. I get it done during Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I get my, based on my diagnosis and where I am, and my mother, who's like, just throw them away. Like, we're in a world of reconstruction of for your hair, your eyes, your body, everything. Just get some new ones.
Go pick out what you want and just
Right?
get it
Go
done.
pick out what you want, but
Right.
get rid of that, because we do have cancer deaths in my family, but just not that particular strain. So I'm like, okay, so it's October. If I can tell you, I go for the surgery and it's a 10-hour long surgery, finally. And when we're done, the doctor tells me, and my birthday, the time I found out is April. From April to October, I'm thinking it's just those same two little tumors that they have escaped. By the time October comes, I have four tumors. It grew from April to October from two little tumors to four big ones.
Right.
And so that's how aggressive and how rapid it is. But I take care of it, as finally I do, with all of the support that I have, with my family, with my support group, everybody. So that's how that goes.
Wow. I mean, that is pretty serious. And so this is a 3-year process
A
from.
3-year process.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, my grandmother was a breast cancer survivor. I've got, and for, I don't know, 30 years,
Right,
and she died just of sort of natural causes. But
right,
so, I mean, obviously I was much younger, so yeah, I was just kind of like, grandma's sick. I don't, I
right,
had
right.
no idea, type of
Yeah.
thing. But then hearing later as I was growing up, like what she had to go through and all this other stuff, I mean, it's pretty harrowing. And then I have a number of like friends who have had various levels of success or not
Hmm.
with cancer, unfortunately.
Right.
I'm always amazed by sort of this new normal that comes out of people when they do survive cancer, which is there is a very distinct you beforehand, you in it, and then a very different you after it, right? And it's wild to watch a person
It
go
is.
through it, especially obviously when it's successful. Like, that's the best
Right.
of it, right?
Right.
But I do feel like there is just a difference in how people live their lives post. I've never met a person who's gone through it and survived it, and they're like, I was like that on Tuesday, went through all of
Right.
this, and the next Tuesday I was the same, and I was going back and doing what I was doing last time. It's like,
Correct.
no, that just literally never happens. And so my question to you is, you talked about sort of this priority of work, and like, I'm working. I don't have time to do
Right.
breast cancer
Time
surgery
to take care of me.
to take care of yourself, right? Like, so how do you see that journey? Like, what was the big difference of you post getting through this? Like, what has changed dramatically in your opinion, or that you've heard from other people where they're like, girl, you're totally different? Like
Right.
what's like what do you think are the big changes between your pre-diagnosis and you're now in,
You're right.
surviving? You're
Correct.
surviving.
Very, very, very good question, because I have a big one for me based on who I am. I always say, breast cancer is like God's aha. Like, that's the aha for you. Because for me, before that, I had locks for 27 years. and they were gorgeous, they were beautiful. Um, you are woman, hear me roar. As people say, a woman is made up this way or that way. After the surgery, things change. With
Sure.
the mastectomy, I get rid of those parts. Um, I go through chemotherapy, so I lose my locks that I had for 27 years, and that was a deep issue for me. All of a sudden, you question yourself, and I question, like beauty standards, because it's like, do I wear a wig? Do I walk around bald?
Yeah.
um and those are all of the things that I learned, meaning at the end of all of that, you're still beautiful. Like, I had to look in the mirror and tell myself, with no hair, no eyebrows, eyelashes barely there, no, nothing going on, and you question yourself, and are you still I'm beautiful inside. I would never take that away, but outside, what are people saying? Because I'll tell you, Jay, I come from work one day and I'm walking down, because I do decide not to wear a wig. And a gentleman said to me, it's June, and he says to me, Happy Father's Day. And I'm like, oh,
Wait, was it like on purpose or?
on purpose. So
Wow.
I'm walking,
Nice.
still trying to catch myself. And I'm walking, and it's warm. And a gentleman is passing me, and he says, Happy Father's Day. And I'm like, oh my gosh. When I tell you the conversation I had when I get home, it's like, Ma, Daddy, do I look like a man? Oh my goodness, because of my aha moment. Because
Right.
they take away the two things that identify you as a woman.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense, right? Like what your body, not to be explicit about it, but like the curves
Oh,
of a woman's body are very different than a man's, right? For obvious reasons.
correct.
And hair is also a big part of that. Reference to losing your locks. I mean, so much is, I have known multiple people with locks, and it's like, oh, this person cut their locks. What happened? There is some major thing. You don't just do it just because, like, I'm done with the style. You do that, like, this is a life-changing situation, good or bad, right?
Good or bad.
So yeah, to lose both of those things that are very much societally
Correct.
considered, like, this is what femininity
Feminine
is.
is, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's okay. That's really sort of that's sort of a mind-boggling kind of moment, I'm sure.
yeah.
Yeah, and
It
then and
really,
at the same time, you're not feeling well. Like, let's put that on top, right? You're going through chemo, and all that's
correct.
that's another layer on top of that. So
Correct.
so when is that moment for you where you go, like, who cares what that guy thought? Who
Right.
cares what people think? Do I need to, get breast augmentation? Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Where is that moment where you're like, I'm doing me. I am going to be who I am. Cancer be damned, sort of thing. I am a survivor, right? When is that moment for you, or describe what that moment is like for you?
So that moment, it was hard. I'm not gonna lie to you, it was hard to get there. Like I said, you're talking about two things that identify you as, identifies your femininity. So it takes about, I'm gonna say about a year and a half, like where I look at myself, and I have to decide for me. That's why I unraveled when he says Happy Father's Day.
Sure.
If I was secure in who I am, that statement would have just been, you know what? Yeah, whatever. Boy, bye. But it
Nice.
ends up not being that, because I not even probably, I say to myself, I wasn't secure in who I am. But I do then become secure in who I am, because being a part of support groups and meeting other women that are on this journey, I learned that we don't all, some of us become pink angels, as I say. They
What does that mean exactly?
So a pink angel for me is a woman that has transitioned due to her breast cancer. And so I hear stories about people. I meet people. I know women in my support group that later on they I don't want to say they didn't win the battle because we all win the battle. We're all a survivor from the moment we're told that it's there and you decide to keep on keeping on.
Sure.
So I'm going to say, about like a year and a half, I finally realized, you know what, you don't need those things. Like you said, society tells you this is what makes you feminine.
Right.
Um, and I have to learn for myself that's not what it is. It's not my hair. It's not anything. It is who I am and my softness as a person. So
Wow.
that it takes a little bit, but yes, it finally
Y-
comes.
Yeah, I remember as a kid, my mother being very, because obviously her mother was a cancer survivor. And I don't think she certainly didn't lose all of her hair, but maybe she lost some. I don't know at the time. Um, but I remember my mother being very adamant to point out when she would see Black women very specifically, Black women who have clearly going through chemo and would be publicly with,
Right,
bald and, no wig, just publicly. And she would always make a big deal about saying to them, like, I see you, like, you look powerful or whatever. I remember that. Like, it's just something that sort of rings out to me.
thanks a lot.
And so, which I think is really helpful. I mean,
It is
it's a
help.
lovely statement in and of itself, sure. But I think also what you're talking about is if you're going through that moment and you're maybe hearing somebody say something that, like, maybe he didn't mean it by mistake, maybe he was being a jerk. I have no idea.
Jerk,
But
yeah.
yeah, jerk. Okay, let's just call him that. We have no idea who this guy is. We'll paint him that way. But when you're going through that sort of situation and you have this feeling of being unsure about yourself, to hear somebody being like, "Hey, I see you," and maybe I have not been through what you're going through, but I can maybe empathize,
Yes,
and I see you as this powerful person, and I just remember that sort of sticking in my head. And anytime I see a woman who is clearly bald, maybe it's not fair for me to assume that it's chemo.
right,
Um, I don't say anything. I'm not going to say anything to them just because I don't want to get yelled at. But
right,
my mom's a bit bolder than I am. But I always have that sort of thought process of like, yeah, good for you. Like, I think that's dope. So I cannot imagine what that feeling is, but I appreciate you speaking to that. Now,
appreciate you and what you just said about your mom too, because that is empowering. If I had that, other than my mom and my sister and my brother, who they'll say, you're beautiful. I'm like, you're just saying that because you're my brother or
yeah,
my sister or my mother.
right.
But to
Nobody listens to those
someone
people.
else,
Yeah,
correct? I mean, the validation.
yeah,
But that would have made me feel different,
yeah.
to hear your mom. And we shouldn't assume now because today, for a woman to be bald, it's not, we can't make those assumptions today. Back then, it was a little different. So,
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. That's why I don't say that. Like,
right?
it's the same rule of like, oh, far along are you pregnant?
Yes,
Don't do that.
correct. Don't,
Like, don't do that. Like, unless she is getting pushed in a wheelchair to the
right,
maternity ward, then
correct.
even then go, you know what? Maybe
And you
I'll just wait. I'll just wait.
very
Don't
well
say anything.
said.
Not worth it.
Right.
So you, in your bio, I mentioned something about you're a co-founder of the Journey Continues African American Breast Cancer Support Group, Inc. What inspired you to sort of co-found this organization, and what makes it different from other support groups?
So what's different is that it is pretty much a support group. You don't have to say, what stage were you found at. You don't have to report, what hospital you use. That comes in the conversation and in the support system that is there. So at the time that I'm going through this, I didn't even talk about that I had breast cancer for 3 years. And when I become a part of that group and I meet all of these amazing women, I finally, am open to talk about my journey. Because there was a time, Jay, I wouldn't talk to anybody. You couldn't have called me and asked me about breast cancer at all because I felt like I had been, I had just been damaged. I was a damaged person. So
Is that while you're in the middle of the fight, or is that after you've sort of already gotten through all of it?
in the middle of it, you feel like, this battle is, it's heavy. Like what you said, like, the mental health issues are
Right.
definitely there. After I then learn and I read up on it. I have so many books, you wouldn't even believe it, about it. And it wasn't until I informed myself and talked to others about things that they've heard that I was able to openly talk about it. Because it's not there's anything wrong with the woman that goes through it. There's nothing wrong with women who don't have to go through it. We all have a journey that we have to go through.
Correct.
And the president of that group, she's one of our Pink Angels, the founder, the president of that group. So that,
Awesome.
those are the things.
So you're also involved with Touch for Life and Tigerlily. These are other organizations and sort of
Yeah.
support groups as well. What are some of the most urgent challenges that these groups are helping to address for Black women?
Oh,
In the midst of this with
right.
breast cancer.
So that is the difference in the groups. I'm not just out here joining groups, Jay.
Yeah,
Like
I
that's not what I do. Like they all have a different facet. They're in a different lane. So the Journey Continues is a breast cancer group, support group. Touch for Life and Tigerlily, they're more about advocacy. So, like going to Annapolis, here in Maryland, that's the capital of Maryland, and talking about things that need to change in terms of, when we find out the disparities that are going on. Like that's where I learn about numbers, about the disparities in with breast cancer and the diagnosis and the different communities
Right.
that are out here. So those are the difference. One is support, and the other two are advocacy on different levels.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was sort of my next question, which is the sort of racial and economic disparities, right? Black women I know are, far less diagnosed sort of early on, if at all, until it's, far too late, unfortunately. But then there's the other aspect, which, may be quite overlapping, I would imagine, which is the economic disparities, right? If you don't have a lot of money, then maybe you don't have health insurance. And if you don't have health insurance, then you're not going to a doctor to get checked out a couple times a year, or even once a year, right? And then on top of that, there's the racial aspect doubled on to it. So what, in your experience, like, what are those disparities that you feel the most passionate about?
So the disparities are like the news was just released about Black women and having dense breasts
Mm.
when you go and you have a mammogram, and that hides cancer. So just imagine, when you go to the mammogram, they can't see through your breast tissue as easily as other people.
Right.
And so it's that the density and the numbers that are increasing there for Black women. In addition, there is the economics. We've done like cancer walks in neighborhoods, just knocking on the door saying, in October, have you had your mammogram? And you have to approach people in a certain way because that's a very delicate situation.
Sure.
But you reach people. I know we had one woman, and in Baltimore City, there's a breast cancer and cervical program, and they will give you a free mammogram. And so, getting that news out. Listen, if economics, you don't have the money to pay for a mammogram, they will give you a voucher to get yourself a mammogram because you have to know in order to catch it early stage, middle stage, or late stage. That's you have to know. Like there's no way around that.
Right.
So that is how that those are the disparities, that we have to go through.
Yeah, you're mentioning of Black women having quote unquote, denser breasts,
Yes.
whatever that means. I don't know.
Right.
From a medical perspective, I don't know what that means.
Right. From a medical perspective, yes.
Right. But that's the same. I remember a couple of years ago, those like blood oxygen things that you put on your hand, the monitors, right? They put it on your fingertip. Like those are actually been found to be less effective with people with darker pigment, right? People didn't know that at first. And so it's like, oh, your blood oxygen's fine. And then they go home. It's like, oh my God, you're having these troubles. Like, yeah, it actually isn't fine. Right. So there are health disparities. I mean, there are tons of reporting about things like this. And this is not like made up,
right.
conspiracy theories things. These are very real things. So yes, to your point, like about Black women being, these mammograms maybe not being as effective, and maybe there's a second test you need to take, or you need to be taking, tests more often, stuff like that. These are good things to know for anybody, by the way. Like it just is. And just as a side note, not to make it about men, because God knows we have enough, but men can also get breast cancer, and that is a very important thing to understand, is that we also should be checked for these things. So,
correct.
Just as a side.
Thank you. That's not a side note. Let's not call it a side note, because that is real.
It's very real. Yeah, it is. But most
men to know.
Yeah, most guys are like, I don't need that one. Like, I guess it's like prostate cancer and like, I don't know, muscle cancer, like whatever for guys seems like more effective for us, right? Like, well, we got to get out of that mindset and realize that breast cancer is a thing absolutely that can happen to men. Yeah. So from there, I do want to talk to you about what is your message do you wish for every woman, particularly Black women, that they could hear about health and self-advocacy? I mean, you seem very much like a self-advocate, and I appreciate that about you. So how do you explain it to Black women? How do you become your own advocate when they're starting to go through this same situation?
Yes, there's not, I don't want to call it a trend, but we're starting to be more about self-care, because there was a time, you have to take care of your partner, your children, just so many different things, and you forget to worry about yourself. You will take your child to the doctor. You'll make sure that your partner, he makes sure that he sees or eats correct, and you forget about yourself. So it is that idea that it's okay to care for yourself. Right. It's okay that, for 4 hours in a day, you are tending to yourself, because we forget. We're so worried about, am I attractive to this person? Am I good for this or that activity? And you forget, what about me? What about me? And so I'm so glad that trend has changed with self-care and being a champion of yourself and your health.
Yeah, so. No, I 100% agree with you. Look, you can't just be filling the lifeboats with everybody else as the ship is sinking, and then you're standing there like, oh, there's no space, right?
Correct.
The whole idea of like being on a plane is like,
yes,
here's your oxygen mask. You take it first, then you worry about others. Like it is what it is, and it's like the funniest metaphor, but like you can't help somebody if you're in trouble. Like it just doesn't work that way.
Jay, so that's always the thing that's on my mind. The airplane, like that is such the best example ever.
Yeah, and everybody can understand. You're like, because the first time you hear that, you're like, but what about my child? Yeah, but if you pass out, then what's going to happen? Like, oh, right, okay, got it. So if you go down, how are you supposed to help anybody else? So you do have to take care of yourself. And I understand that notion of like it feels kind of selfish, but it should, because you're supposed to be worried about yourself. We don't have like selfish is a term that we've used to sort of negate taking care of ourselves, and you don't do it just like forget everybody else in the world type of thing.
Correct.
But you do have to focus on yourself sometimes, otherwise you will have not so great outcomes. I mean, it's just reality of the world. Yeah. So at this point, we're going to do our get on the box sort of situation, and So I'll go first here. One, Desiree, thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate it. I like your energy. You seem like a person very much who has come through some very serious situations and come out on the other side quite bright and cheerful and stronger. It feels that way. Look, I don't know what else to say about Breast Cancer Awareness Month that hasn't already been said, which is take care of yourself, go to the doctors, men and women. If you are going through this, make sure that you have people to talk to, right? Whether it's family or support groups, a little bit of both is probably the best answer there. If you are a caretaker, there's also you need time for yourself. We talked to someone recently about that. Like being a caretaker is a very hard job. And oftentimes people just sort of forget about them too. But that is also important. So it's not just to be aware of what month it is and everything else, but be aware of this all the time.
Right.
This every day of the year, make sure you take care of yourself and take care of others. So I'll leave it to you, Desiree. You're on the box.
I'm on the box. So on the box, I will say definitely take that self-care, that self-advocacy. Definitely make sure you look at yourself and how you feel and how is life going. For women, don't get like me sidetracked where it's like, okay, I'm not old enough. The standard age now is 50, but you can't just rest on the laurels of I'm not 50 yet, so I don't need to worry. Because I'm sorry, it's now 40. I apologize, everyone. It's back to 40. So you need to make sure that even though you don't have any family history, you aren't feeling anything, you still need to stay on top of it. Because what you don't want is a birthday phone call that, in fact, you do have what you have been fearing and heard about throughout. So definitely self care, stay on top of it, find a way to get your mammograms and make sure that you have breast health. You're not doing anything to endanger yourself at all. So
There you go. All right. Well, that is it for this episode of the Chicken Box. I appreciate you, Desiree. That was great. And I appreciate our audience. So we will see you guys next time.
thank you.